We're on? Hello. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I hope you're enjoying the conference. It's been quite a fun-filled, action-packed ride. We're here today to talk about hybrid architectures. My name is John Landy. I also have with me Gil and Ovi. We're going to walk through two hybrid architectures and really what you need to think about as you plan, build, and run those architectures over time. So just a little bit of a background on who we are. We're from Datapipe. Datapipe has been doing work with Amazon for about 5 years now. Our business came up out of really even hosting a co-location. So we've been working with hybrid IT architectures before they were even called hybrid IT architectures. We've been working with Amazon as a premier consulting partner. And we're defined as a managed service provider. So everybody really has a different definition of that. So just to set the stage on what we do, we work through the full life cycle of the application development. We work on understanding the business needs. We work on making sure that we have the security set up properly with the architecture. Then we work with you to understand what compliance needs you might have. And we've really come up with some unique ways to maintain PCI compliance in the cloud. And these become very difficult as you work in a hybrid IT environment where you might have a private cloud, bare metal server, and AWS services running all in the same solution. So just to set the stage for what we're going to do today, we're going to walk through two architectures. We're going to tackle it in 3 different phases for each one. We're going to talk about first, how do we plan the architecture? So this is where we're actually designing and defining the architecture. We understand the business needs, so the solution we come up with actually solves a business problem. We're then going to work on understanding the timelines, understanding what we're trying to do with workloads, understand what objectives we're trying to get out of that. And a lot of that really is cost and usage optimization on the workloads. The real key thing is that the architectural solution that we come up with really has to fit into the strategy of what you're trying to do overall with the IT, your IT strategy. So it has to be consistent with that. The next phase is the build. So with build, we talk about automation and orchestration, and we're going to walk through how we've done that. We talk about setting up security groups, IAMs, to make sure everything is going to meet your needs, specifically around compliance, because that's where a lot of the difficulties come. Again, PCI really has a number of unique things you have to do around your governance model. One thing that we like to strive for as a company when we're setting up architectures is make sure that everything's automated. We really make sure that we can recreate the instances at will, and we do it from templates so that we ensure that when we make changes to the environment, we're actually still maintaining the same compliance needs that we might have originally came to with the project. The governance model, again, I keep using the word governance because that's actually important here, especially with the compliance models, but talk about that and the changes you have to make as an organization as you go from a traditionally deployed IT architecture to this hybrid model. It's somewhat unique. Run. So we go plan, we build it, we automate it, and then we go run. So what does this mean? This is ensuring that everything in production that's running is based on those pre-approved templates so that if there is some sort of audit or compliance check, you can validate everything's there. And then ongoing performance, and that's really around monitoring for your NOC and SOC type activities. How do you set up the solution so that you can have a standardized application performance monitoring all the way up, fully up the stack? And then how do you look at the application as it's running to take an iterative approach to understanding the optimization? A lot of work we do is around cost optimization, so you can understand what you're doing with your reserved instance models, how you can save money, how you can actually re-architect and change the architecture so that it actually will save you money, and that might mean redeploying some of those workloads in a different area. So that's the stage, plan, build, run. We're going to walk through 2 scenarios that we've done with our clients. The first is a solution for a financial services software company. This company actually had the problem where they wanted to go fully all into AWS. The area that becomes hybrid is that their partners were sending in direct data feeds to make this happen, so it's a hybrid architecture from the network level. The partner solutions actually had a high amount of bandwidth that they were sending in for data feeds. It was time series, financial services, data, so it was a lot of data getting fed into a fully deployed solution on AWS. The second one is PCI. So PCI in the cloud, this solution is a traditional hybrid IT environment. We're going to walk you through the implications of the PCI compliance requirements on that solution. So just to get a show of hands, is everybody here, just want to get an idea, how many people are actually thinking about deploying a hybrid IT architecture? You're in the sort of design phase. Okay, great. And how many people are already running hybrid IT architecture? Okay, good. So it looked like more people are thinking about it than actually doing it. Great. So we'll talk about how we went through the step from the beginning. This is also true around migration of an existing app on an on-prem or a colo environment, but it also includes re-architecting something that's running in the cloud. So I'm going to turn it over to Ovi, who's going to walk us through the first scenario here.
Can everyone hear me okay? All right, cool. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you all had a good lunch. My name is Ovidio Burrow, or OV for short, or OV1 Kenobi, whatever you guys want to call me. I am a senior solution architect with Datapipe. I've been with Datapipe for 2 years. Before that, I was a system administrator for another hosting company. But now, this is my present role. So part of my role with Datapipe is to help clients architect solutions, right? So part of that job includes looking at if they need high availability, disaster recovery, hybrid cloud. So we help pull it all in together, and that's what myself and Gilberto do. So this first case is a financial application. The application is very unique. So one of the very unique things about this application is that there is no external access. So there is no public port 80, port 443 external access. Everything can either come from direct connectivity or through a backup VPN tunnel. So the application itself, it's a VPN, it's a full Microsoft stack running IIS, ASP, Microsoft SQL Server 2012 with DAGs. The problem with this customer, the issue that they encountered was that they were deploying this infrastructure across the globe. And when I say across the globe, in different data center providers, different locations, different regions. And the problem with this is that it wasn't scalable for them. The biggest issue is that they had, you would go to one data center and they would charge you X amount of dollars, and then you would go to another data center and they would charge you B amount of dollars. And the problem with that was that there wasn't a consistent cost model. So when they had to bill back customers, the cost, they had to account for that difference in costing. So they needed to look for a way to bring it all to one provider, but at the same time, increase the efficiency with the deployment. So the biggest thing that they were doing was that it was manual deployments, right? So these guys are going out there, they're deploying this application, and everything's manual. So installing the package is manual, deploying SQL is manual, all of it is manual. And that wasn't scalable for them. They needed a way to be able to quickly deploy this stack and leverage AWS's awesome infrastructure as a service to deploy their software as a service. So AWS made perfect sense because of the global reach. They partnered with us because we do also have a global reach, and we're partnered with AWS and Equinix to provide direct connect capabilities. So again, one of the biggest things here was trying to pull it all in. So bring everything into one single provider that can take care of it all from multiple regions. So in terms of global availability and high availability, AWS was the answer for them. They needed to minimize the deployment downtime, and how do they do that? So I'll get into some of the components of it and what we use to help automate and to help maximize the deployment time and pretty much increase their efficiency with their turnover for their product to the market. All right. So quick show of hands, just how many people have heard of all these AWS VPC, EC2? I'm sure you guys have all heard of it. So I'm going to go over at a very high level of what the services are. And then if you guys have any questions, we can do it after. So part of the assessment role, and again, going back to the plan, build, and run, is during the planning phase, we do an assessment, right? So we do discovery. Part of that discovery is understanding what the client has. So what are you using right now? What are your application dependencies? Of those dependencies, how many of them are they tied into? Because you'd be surprised. You can get a stack as complicated as running something like Console, Zookeeper, Ansible, Puppet, Chef, SaltStack. You'd be surprised some of the different stacks that are out there. But part of our role is to understand what they're using, how they're using it, and what the end goal is, what they're trying to do. So what services do they want to leverage with AWS that they can leverage right now that would map? So what are they using right now that maps to an AWS service? It's almost kind of like building Legos, right? Who doesn't love playing with Legos? Kind of building blocks, right? So I see one thing, all right, it maps here. So from the networking, from the compute, from the storage, we're able to map it together. So AWS Direct Connect. So this customer, they're actually subscribed to a third-party data provider. And they're receiving large amounts, terabytes actually, of data. So they needed a way to push this data through with very low latency and high throughput from those locations. So the reason they chose Direct Connect is because it made sense, right? Because right now, sending terabytes of data over the internet with a very small 50 megabit pipe, it wasn't very effective for them. So they had to say, what can we do here to increase, again, our efficiency and bring everything into AWS? And again, that was one of the biggest things here, going to the public cloud and leveraging AWS. So Direct Connect was a solution that could give them the low latency and high throughput that they needed. VPC. Oh, actually, let's take a step back, because at the core of all AWS deployments is EC2. So Elastic Cloud Compute, that's going to be our resources, right? That's going to be our instances that contain storage, that contain the memory, that contain the EBS volumes that have our block storage. So with EC2, previously, they were doing their deployments manually, right? So we're talking about going in and click, 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 next, next, next. It wasn't working for them. So with with EC2, EC2 instances, we can create snapshots and create AMIs, or these golden baked AMIs. So these golden baked AMIs had all the configurations. So it had Git installed so they can pull from their repositories. It had SNMP configured so they can actually do the monitoring. It had IS configured the way they needed to be configured. So with this golden baked AMI, we were able to templatize the deployment of these instances because it was a very similar, instance, right? So one application contains the same amount of instances, but I need to be able to deploy these instances quickly. They're going to use EC2 AMI snapshots. S3 and Glacier. So they use S3 as hot data access. So what they're doing is they're taking local MS SQL Server dumps, and they're storing that on S3. And the reason for that is that they want to be able to quickly, in case something were to happen to that group, in case it fails for whatever reason, they want to be able to quickly recover that data. So we used S3 as as hot access storage, and then we use lifecycle management to take the dumps that have been stored for, let's say, X amount of days, let's call it 30 days, and we push that off to Glacier for retention and compliance purposes. Route 53. They're using Route 53 for DNS services, of course. So what they're doing with Route 53 is they're doing round robin, actually, to an internal ELB that's distributing the traffic. ELB, you use that, of course. They're using that for SSL offloading and traffic distribution between the web servers. And Amazon SNS, so the simple notification service. They're actually using this to trigger alerts. So when events happen, so let's say the auto-scaling policy for their web tier spikes up, they want to be notified. They want to be able to kind of have visibility into what's going on. So using these services, we were able to develop a solution for them that answered a lot of what they wanted. So our design. So what were some of the requirements? What do they need? So one, they need to be highly available, right? They wanted to ensure that if one availability zone went down, that they can still continue to serve their end customers with their application. So deploying between different AZs, that's the first step, right? So you have a web tier deployed between multiple subnets and different AZs. Then with those AZs or with those subnets and those web tiers that we deployed, we use auto-scaling groups based on that golden baked AMI I talked about earlier to actually deploy and quickly scale out their application, because it's all about scaling out. And with AWS, you want to make sure that you're leveraging the automation tools to scale out, and that's its biggest strength. Direct Connect for remote sites. So again, they're pushing terabytes of data through, so that, again, they needed that low latency and high throughput connection into AWS. So with that, all the remote vendors, it's quite an interesting setup. The way they subscribe to their third-party subscription service. We took care of configuring the BGP routing for them at the network layer, and they have multiple third-party providers that are coming in over that encrypted, I'm sorry, not encrypted, but the BGP network, and then getting routed into their AWS environment. Disaster recovery in a separate region. So one of the things that also we need to account for was that if the application went down in the primary region, they weren't out of luck, right? So we needed a plan for their recovery time objectives and their recovery point objectives. So in the event US West goes down, they can quickly come back up in US East. So develop a migration plan based on the application demand. So what this is talking about is it's not really even a migration plan. So what we've done is after we architected this whole solution, so we came up with the VPC architecture, the network connectivity, security groups, network ACLs, AMIs. We were able to templatize this, so using CloudFormation. So CloudFormation enables us and you guys to pretty much deploy a full stack with the click of a button, right? So think of it, I like to think of it like I'm hanging out on the Imperial Death Star in Star Wars, and then you got the little T-fighters. CloudFormation is just that, right? It's taking automation, it's taking it, the little parameters, resources, and you describe all that good stuff. And with the click of a button, literally, I can just deploy a staging, production, development, and whatever other environments I need just within the click of a button. So CloudFormation mixed with a combination of a few other services enables them to quickly get to market and deploy this as a package to their customers. So now they went from, let's call it a 4-month deployment for an application, getting data center space, power, space, cooling, and they brought that down into 5 minutes with automation. Let's go to the next slide. And this is the architecture here. So I was actually going to click here. I don't want to blind any of you guys. So coming in here, so as you can see, this is right here where you see the internal users, remote sites. Sorry for you guys on the right if I'm not giving you the love. I can go over there too. But so this is the third-party subscription service that's sending the data over. They're coming into the direct connect, and again, we take care of all the BGP routing, the connectivity into AWS, and all that's coming in, and it's going to hit the ELB. So these are all internal-facing ELBs. It says a DMZ, but it's actually not a DMZ. It's an internal DMZ, if you want to call it that. And then you can kind of follow the flow. On the right side, and just so you guys know, so in case the direct connect were to go down for this provider, they actually have a fallback as a VPN. So we set up site-to-site VPN tunnels as a backup, as a fail-safe. So you could use something like OpenSwan. You can use Viata. There are tons of different technologies out there that you could leverage to actually have that connectivity. So they're load balancing to the in this DMZ right here. This is where you have pretty much their web front ends. It's going to all go back to the database zone. So it's actually really simple. When you kind of point it out, when you kind of put all the blocks together, it all kind of makes sense. So when I first started with AWS, I was like, oh my God, there's so many pieces to this. But as you start working with it, you get more comfortable with the services. It just all starts to make more sense. So pretty much, they have their web front end. It's scaling outward. So in the event a CPU trigger hits 60%, they're able to automatically scale out horizontally. Their database is, again, split out between different availability zones. So in the event one AZ goes down, we can quickly fail over and bring up the secondary database instance. And what they're actually doing here is that we have a staging, a prod, and disaster recovery. So the staging area, that's where they're using it to pull in their code, test the code, and make any changes. What we've actually done here is we actually set up VPC peering. So one of the requirements that they had was to have complete network isolation between the different environments. So what we had to do was we had actually split it out into a staging VPC, into a production VPC, and what we did was we enabled VPC peering, which was actually released this year, to enable cross communication between those networks, essentially. And then for disaster recovery, this is in a completely separate region down here. What we're doing there is we're doing Microsoft SQL Server log shipping to send over transaction logs. And we're doing streaming replication, so Active Directory sites and services. And actually, for the web tier, they're pulling in their source code from where they need it to, and then we're offloading everything to S3. So S3 is being used for EBS backups, SQL dumps, and then Glacier again for long-term archival. And that's the solution. I'm going to hand it over to Gil now, who's going to walk you through a great PCI example of something very similar. And I'll hand it over to you, Gil. Thank you, guys.
Yes.
Buenas tardes. ¿Cómo están todos? Oops. For a second, I thought I was in Barcelona. So take that back. The name is Gilanos. I have been with Datapipe for 3.5 years as a solutions architect. Prior to that, I worked for one of the Big Four accounting firms. I was there for almost 13 years as a global network engineer. My specialty is building highly complex solutions that require almost zero downtime. Right? So what I'm going to talk about today is a specific case for a global enterprise with specific requirements that tied them back to the way that they designed their applications. They had a specific issue with Oracle RAC. Everything that they did was utilizing the databases, Oracle. And as you are aware, there's an issue with AWS and Oracle RAC due to multicasting, right? So they came to us with a set of requirements and needs. Again, same issue, multiple vendors, multiple data centers, multiple support teams around the globe. And their mandate was basically to, hey, we need to unify, we need to centralize, we need to find a platform that is going to take us to the next level so that we can be agile. Current deployment, when they were all sparse, took them 3, maybe 6 months to deploy a solution. They wanted to get to the point where they can deploy a solution within days. So big undertaking. Again, the user experience was inconsistent. You had users accessing the same application from one region, and then other users from another region, and they were having different performance altogether. So they wanted to standardize the user experience. Back to the Oracle piece. All of their solutions are tied back to Oracle. They're serving multiple line of businesses internally, and that was a major obstacle to overcome. I'm going to move on. And the final one, they wanted to be automated for everything. Everything and anything. That was the mandate. We need to be able to automate everything so that we can be agile. So instead of having 20, 50, 100, 500 people, they wanted to automate the processes. Next. All right. The major challenge was that multiple of their applications needed to be PCI compliant. Right? So they had production, non-prod, PCI, and they wanted to define a way so that they can onboard all of these applications. Right? So the major problem with that is that you have to have governance in multiple places. And I'm going to start talking about that. Governance on the network piece. How many here are practicing governance right now with the networking piece, if you have a hybrid model? This is huge because when you are trying to deploy solutions on AWS and you're trying to utilize the same IP space that you have on your enterprise, that's the big problem. You have to have someone at the top that is controlling the intake process, right? If you don't have that, it's going to be chaos. So this is what we learned in the past 3-4 years. Have someone that is controlling the networking piece. Another issue, who is in charge of making sure that the compliance is taking place for those environments that are and have to be PCI compliant? Someone in your organization or a partner of yours has to be in charge of doing that, right? Because when the audits do come and you don't comply, you're going to be paying hefty penalties. So, compliance. Let me move on to the next one. Again, sparse designs, ecosystems of managed providers, ecosystems of support groups, and the users, always complaining. Mandate, they needed to go to the cloud. That was number one. Why? Because they need to be agile. Governance and compliance, that means that, hey, we don't want to be doing that all the time, right? We want to be focusing specifically on developing our applications where we make our money. We don't want to be spending resources on, I need to have a team that is going to make sure that my compliance passes all the audits. I want to have a team that monitors everything on my stack, when you can have those same people working on projects that are going to bring value to your organization. Again, Oracle RAC. Again, if you're familiar with Oracle RAC, you have to know that multicasting is a big obstacle, right? You know, a lot of platforms, because it's a chatty protocol, you have to think about, if you're going to bring it over, how does it work, okay? How can I make it work? And for them, they wanted to protect the data also. They want to, hey, we need this physical data secure. This is where our money is. And thanks to Direct Connect, we were able to develop a design that leverages ultra low latency back to the Amazon space. Now we're talking about 3 milliseconds, maybe less than that, right? Of connectivity. So you burst into your app, you burst into your web tiers, and your Oracle databases, they are responding as they were hosted right there within Amazon. It's fascinating, right? So again, those are the items that we discovered during the assessment phase. I'm going to move on to the next item, design. They needed to be available. They needed to be available for their clients. They needed to meet those RTO, RPO requirements. High availability, critical. So you got to think about multi-AZ, multi-region. You have to think about replication of Oracle. How do I move a 65 terabyte database that is constantly being updated, and I keep that fresh on another region? That's a lot of data you got to move. And that's a lot of pipe and bandwidth that you need, right? So we helped them with that. On the PCI compliance and security piece, what we've done is we've built a framework, again, utilizing the Amazon Direct Connect service. And what that service was is we are hosting a management service on-premise. And all the controls that are needed for PCI and for patching, it's hosted on-premise on our locations. And we drill back into the Amazon space. We monitor their instances. Automation, critical. How do you automate an environment that needs to be PCI compliant? That's hard, right? Because you need to burst, you need to bring down, and how do you apply all the controls so that you are compliant? So 2 ways. You can do it statically, and you can do it dynamically, right? Static, that means that someone, either your organization or your partner, has to be in control of the management of the AMIs, the templates, right? So that all those pieces and controls are already embedded into your templates. And the moment that you need to burst into any scenario, let's say you're running low capacity, you need to burst, those instances, when they go out there, they need to be already compliant. Otherwise, you're going to be defaulting, right? You're not going to pass the compliance, and you're going to run into issues. So we've done it the static way. We help them with the build-out of the different controls, what needs to be running on those instances, on the templates. They have an organization that manages all of the templates for the different line of businesses internally. So if line of business A comes in and they say, I want to onboard an application, you go through a security review process. You have to have that defined too. You have to understand how their application works. You have to understand how all those pieces that are going to make your application compliant are already in place. It doesn't happen automatically. You got to put the work. It's a lot of work. The second way is using on demand, bootstrapping. The problem with bootstrapping is you build it as you go, And if you build it as you go, it works for some applications. But when you're applying a lot of patches and you're applying a bunch of packages, your deployment time is going to be like, so when you need the application, the instance to be up and running, 5, 10, 20 minutes is not good enough. Right? So you got to think about how fast I can deploy and comply at the same time. So 2 items there. Centralized monitoring, okay? What this means is we help them define the way that they want to view all of their solutions in a single portal. And what I mean with that is, I'm not talking just simply about health of an instance. That's past. I'm talking about transactions, right? I have this big application that has a bunch of dependencies with different other applications. And I want to make sure that what I'm serving for that main application in transaction time helps the other ones. And it's the same. So important. Centralized backup. You can use the snapshots, but guess what? Sometimes you have requirements that ask for controls. I need to see if my backup ran, if I need file level backup. The snapshots are not going to help you, right? So if you need a console, if you need to follow exactly, okay, my backup for this application, for all these different components ran at this time, they were logged, I see them, I know what failed exactly. That's at a different level than snapshots, okay? So, and snapshots don't work for everything. So, ITIL-based, the clients will get an ITIL-based framework that's portal, right? That means that you can track all of your instances, you can track the incidents, you can track any changes, advanced control, right? And you have full visibility of your solution, right? So it takes a lot of work to make all of those pieces. So bringing it back all the way to being a global organization and having hundreds of line of businesses that you have to serve, right? You have to have processes developed so that you can be agile, right? Otherwise, you're going to spend months building it. Okay, another solution comes in. Let's roll out everybody. Let's bring everybody. It doesn't work like that. You want to have everything already predefined. You have to have organizations inside your organization or with your partners that are going to take care of all of that. Okay, I need to deploy application A. It's a PCI compliant application. Organization A knows how to do it. Submit the request. They'll provide you with the proper subnets. They'll help you with the proper templates. Controls, PCI controls. We have packaged for them IDS. We have packaged for them event logging. We have packaged for them assessment on the firewalls. So you don't have to worry about doing none of that. It takes time. It takes effort, right? And the way that we've done it, again, is we host that on our private location within our data centers, and we burst into the Amazon space, and we have full visibility of everything that happens, and we are able to comply with PCI and HIPAA. This is a design, basically. It depicts one region, right, multi-VPC, and the approach that we took with them is each environment is a VPC, right? So your PCI environment is a VPC. Any solutions that do have to be deployed within the PCI controls will go into the PCI VPC. You go through a process. It's a PCI solution. Submit the request. Show me the application. Go through a security review. Create the templates. And when you're ready to deploy, the organization that is in charge of the networking will give you your blocks within that VPC. You know, if you have requirements to communicate with existing PCI solutions, you will have to put that in place. So it's a lot of work, a lot of planning. But once you have defined that, you're going to be agile. You're going to be fast, and you're going to be compliant, right? So In this case, the client is actually in multiple regions. In this case, this one is depicting Northern Virginia. Yeah. And their databases, they have massive, massive Oracle databases. And, you know, multiple applications, hundreds of applications hosted on the space are traversing those links, you know. Highly redundant, 10 gig links, dedicated just for them. No issues with the databases. Compliance is being applied. And the model works. It's a model that works. It's a model that allows you to grow, reduces cost, and more than anything, you're compliant. Right? Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yep.
I'm sorry, for the first application?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, yes. It's not actually a trading application. There was a misprint on there. It's actually just a financial application. We're not doing impressions or anything like that.
Yes. Thank you. Anybody? Anybody else?
Questions? And we will be available. We do have a space down in the expo, but we're also available out here after the show for any questions that we have. This is really talking about how we get from dev and test and usage of AWS to production in real environments. So that's the key thing we've been walking through here. How do you? It is going to be a hybrid solution in production. How do you still maintain compliance? You know, as a security, optimization, and then automate the entire thing. So thanks a lot, everyone. Have a good conference.
That sounds good.